Good morning, everyone. My name is Victor Fiss. I am the Director of Sales Engineers here at Parallels, and today I'll be presenting our webinar dedicated for the education industry. Before we can get started, I just wanted to highlight a couple of things and logistics for today's webinar. The first one is if you have any questions, comments, and you want to add to our session today, please post them into the Q&A section of the WebEx, and we'll be addressing your questions in the end of the webinar after we complete the demo and we go to the Q&A session. The session today is being recorded, so in case you have to drop off, we will be sending you a follow-up email with the video, and of course, later on, you could come or go to our YouTube channel and get more information about it. About Parallels or the agenda for today, we wanted to highlight a few important things for the education business, which is related to how we can help mobility, how we can help in mobile learning when actually quick onboarding of students. And every year, usually it's a complicated process to install thousands of applications to end users in different operating systems, and we have a good way to resolve the onboarding process where you can run in your infrastructure and bring Windows applications to your student devices. And in use cases where you have Chromebooks or Raspberry Pis or Apple devices or even tablets, how that can work in a very, very easy and simple way. We have also case studies related to the industry where we have small organizations or small school districts all the way to college and universities that they have 20,000 users. And every year, of course, that changes. How can you quickly onboard them to your organization? On the Parallel side, who we are, probably some of you have heard about Parallels Desktop. That is actually highly utilized in the industry to run Windows applications from any devices or, your Mac especially. We also have a Mac management tool that integrates with SCCM, which is also very successful in the education business. But the main focus today is related to Parallels Remote Application Server, where we're running Windows applications on your infrastructure or running on cloud like Microsoft Azure or AWS and stream these applications to your end users. In general, we are present in 5 million or more than 5 million individuals and more than 50,000 businesses in different areas, of course, but one of our big industry focus or focus areas is the education business. Again, universities, colleges, school districts, and so on. But what is Remote Application Server? Remote Application Server basically runs on Windows servers, depending on Microsoft Remote Desktop services, and you install your applications on those servers, and we securely deliver them or stream them to endpoint devices, which are your student computers or laptops or even tablets. What is very important here is we like to help you to have high-density users using servers. That's why we usually use remote desktop services to do that. And we can run on your existing server infrastructure. That might be running Nutanix, HPE, Dell, or even other vendors. But if you're moving more and more to cloud, like Office, Azure, or Office 365, AWS, or even Google Cloud, our technology can also be deployed on that particular framework. So pretty much we have very, very easy and flexible ways to deploy Remote Application Server. I will not show how do we deploy today, but if you're interested to test, I encourage you to go to Parallels website, go to our trial page, and you could quickly start a proof of concept today on Microsoft Azure 30 days for free, where you can play with your own applications and see how that works. We were named as a good and major player in the IDC study done in 2016, and we are highly compatible and competitive to the big vendors today, such as VMware and Citrix. Although our operational cost and licensing cost can reduce it by 60%, and at the same time improve user experience, especially in the mobile devices and Apple platforms, where users don't know how to use so well Citrix technologies. We can come and use our own policies, own deployment tools to make sure it's much more easier for end users. And on top of that, if you want to go 100% clientless, we can provide you an HTML5 client where it's compatible to pretty much all platforms, which includes one-click printing and as well file transfer capabilities. And that actually is part of the IDC report. So I encourage you, if you have interest to read it, also go to Parallel's website and gather or read more information about this particular study. Now, on the areas we work, and it actually is becoming more and more common independent which industry we work with, it's about security, it's about how applications are installed, antivirus controlling the file access, making sure it's clean, or even having secure browsers for students to access sensitive information or regular information. And in this case, we can provide you a secure browser where you set the controls, you set the scanning capabilities or tools to make sure no ransomware or viruses get access to your infrastructure. The second point, which is it's not so important into education, but in some cases when you have faculty involved or even more sensitive information, you can leverage two-factor authentication for specific users or groups to enhance the security for that matter. The deployment is, if you today use Microsoft RDS or even other technologies, we're here to make sure it's easier and more flexible for you to manage it. And we're extremely focused into the user experience, which means easy to use, intuitive, and if you move from one device to another, students and faculty don't lose what they have been doing. They can move from one machine to another, and the files that they were manipulating will be presented in a very easy way. So it's pretty much like a follow-me approach, and of course you can set what kind of applications can do that, and of course, if they are idle for such a long time, automatically disconnect and save resources on your server backend. In terms of functionalities, we have actually a few that are very important. Is we of course leverage Microsoft RDS or RDSH capabilities. We're delivering applications to all of the devices, and if you have some specific requirements depending the user group to do video streaming or high density application streaming requirements for your end users. But when we talk about thousands of users, a great use case that we have here is related to HTML5. Clientless capability that works pretty much on every single operating system and platform, where you can white label it based upon groups, faculties, or even the whole district or college could have a personalized portal where your users will see and access their applications. And for that level of customization, which I'll show you today, it's super simple to be accomplished. For automation and load balancing capabilities, we provide APIs to allow you to scale up or scale down your remote desktop farms. So you might need maybe 10 or 20. It will all depend on how much resources your users will need. And that is a very important point, that we can have a point that that users can seamlessly use more resources or less. And that's, something becoming more and more common, because we want you to have that flexibility. So if you have questions, please raise them into our Q&A. There's a question here, how long this webinar will take. Usually this webinar is between 35 minutes to 45 minutes, no longer than that. And if you have to jump off, no problem, we'll send the recorded version to everybody else. On the two-factor authentication side, we work with different vendors. We work with any radius-capable technology. So if you already have different vendors already in your organization, integration, it's fairly simple. And what is very important for end user perspective is whomever he or she is printing. We have universal printing technology that maps more or less 95–96% of all printers in the marketplace, and you don't have to manage it. Parallel's remote application server will manage the printers for you automatically. So every time a user connects to your applications, we'll detect what printers they have, and if they connect to a new device, those will be automated for you. So it is pretty much like having your PC or your session available anywhere you go. And in the client management side and policies, you can create the policies that will control access, USB devices, local disk drives if you want to have access or not, or even how the updates will be pushed to your end users. So end users do not have to worry about how settings are deployed. You control them. You set those as a priority. And the flexibility side, and this is very important, Parallel's remote application server runs pretty much on any version of Windows Server. So if your applications run on Windows Server 2016, perfect. But if you have specific apps that must run on Windows Server 2003 Service Pack 1 or Windows Server 2008 R2 or 2012, you can have different servers in different levels that would address your application requirements. We don't push you to use a specific version of Windows. And on the security side is, if Microsoft releases an emergency patch, you don't have to wait Parallels to certify it. In most cases, pretty much all of them, you should update Windows. You should put the security patches right away, and we will be compatible with it. It's very different approach taken by our competition today. So beyond the traditional classroom setting, this is what we have been working with several universities and colleges. Instead of building lab environments and setting up PC by PC or Mac by Mac, we provide an easy way to centralize all of your settings, all of your applications, and every school year recycle or restart of your labs. That is done in a fewer servers instead of hundreds of thousands of workstations. And of course, depending on the delivery model of the student, you can use different ways of the Parallels client to allow that to happen. So mobile learning. So using our iOS clients or Android clients, students and teachers can share documents. You can customize specific keystrokes or to provide quick access to them. And depending on the level of security, you can use Touch ID or Face ID capabilities for users to access your apps. So you are increasing security, you're increasing deployment speed, So you increase end user satisfaction, of course, and you're reducing your operational costs. And we spoke about HTML5, and we talk about how you can customize it, but also you can have personalized URLs or themes, or even add different messages depending who is connecting to your farms, or depending on the portal side. And we rely on Microsoft Active Directory, so which means you don't have to create a new repository to control identities. Probably you already have Active Directory in your environment and your farms. It's just another way that Parallels uses as a connector or as a repository to parse user information. Also, what is becoming fairly common, Chromebooks and Raspberry Pis. So Chromebooks, of course, we have a dedicated Chromebook client that works with Parallels Remote Application Server, and as well with Raspberry Pis. But if you're also using thin clients for specific lab initiatives, we are also compatible. It doesn't matter if they run Windows or Linux operating system, it is pretty much transparent for us. So let's talk about a couple of use cases before we jump into a demo. The first one is Texas Tech University, and they were using Citrix XenApp to deliver Microsoft applications, and we have replaced them to fulfill a few use cases: cost, ease of use from an end user perspective or students and faculty, and the flexibility to use a single console to manage all of the environments and Windows servers with multiple versions. So we provided applications, VDI, and security access to specific files for end users across the campus. The University of Cambridge, they didn't have any virtualization technology, so we provided them a new way to push Microsoft Office to their students and faculty, and also enable mobile experience for a full version of Microsoft Office to Chromebooks and as well to Apple devices. So before we go to the demo, I want to highlight a few items. First of all, we can, if you're using Citrix or other technologies, we can reduce it today more or less by 60%, which is fairly easy. If we're using Microsoft RDS only, we can enhance the experience and increase security. And of course, if you have certain applications that have been used for so many years and they mandated to be running on Windows laptops or desktops, now you can deliver them to any device. And we have a flexible licensing model, which is a single price, which is around $100 per user per year, and the user is concurrent connections, and you have access to all of our features. There are no additional charge for additional components. One single price for pretty much everything. Trials, like I mentioned, you can connect to our webpage and you can instantly start a proof of concept either in your data center, but we encourage you to use the Azure or AWS appliance because it's fully automated deployment, and you can use it for free for 30 days. And this particular image or self-deployed trial is ready more or less in 15 minutes or so, or sometimes even less. It all depends how the data center would respond to you. So let me share now my screen besides the slide deck, and let's show how Parallels remote application works. So the first thing that I wanted to highlight, it is our HTML5 client or gateway. It is very similar as a portal where you can see all of your applications, files, and depending again on your Active Directory role, you can see what you have access. I'm an admin, so I can see the console, I can see Microsoft Office, admin tools, and such. And the login process is fairly simple. You have to use your credentials, and once you're logging in, again, you see your apps. We detect if you have the client. If you don't have the client, no worries. We show how it can be easily pushed to end users by using the download button, and if they want to use a full local access, they can just click on the configure button. To access apps, let me just give you an example using Microsoft Office. You can set the behavior to open the client, use HTML5, or just right-click and open the application the way that you want. So we're establishing a connection. Just to give you a perspective here, I'm in the west coast of the US. This particular Azure deployment is running on the east coast of the US, so it just took a few seconds to load the session for us. Like a desktop, I have links, applications that I have, so we're mimicking a workspace inside the browser. And you can see the apps, desktops, and other resources. So if I decide to open the console, it will be populated here in the bottom. And if I decide to open another tool like Microsoft Excel in the HTML5 client, it will be opening as a tab. So it's fully functional for the end user. It doesn't matter, again, where they're coming from. So I'm just opening an Excel file here. We can play around, resize it, change it, make it bigger, smaller, full screen, and such. But I wanted to highlight a couple of features. First one, it's the clipboard. The second one is you can upload files or download files. So we integrate with your local operating system where you can pick different images or files to be sent to the data center. So I'm just uploading, for example, an image that should be going to my cloud storage here under Documents. Upload is completed, and I can just insert the image, for example, that I just uploaded. So let me just go here to my Documents. Here's the image that I just got. In fact, it's just the Parallels logo that I can see in this particular screen. Once this is done, I mentioned to you as well the one-click printing capability. So if I click on Print, we can pick different things. I have different printers already mapped. I want to use my HTML5 printing redirection. We will send it, and it's seamless for the end user to see a pop-up that will be like a browser or directed directly to my printer. So it's like printing a web page. This is my home printer, and then I can make all of the necessary changes I want to do in the printing. So we have done behind the scenes great intelligence and automation to simplify that for the end user. And from a console perspective, it's the same. So it doesn't matter what application you have or desktop that you have, the access and the experience is pretty much the same. So here, if I go back to the main menu and I go now to Victor Apps and just go to my Windows 10 desktop, I can also use or present a full-blown Windows 10 or Windows 7 or even XP desktop in a browser. And the advantage here goes again to no need for a client to be installed and the true mobility. So I just need to click on the Maximize button. Now I receive audio redirection, file uploads, and I can use different keystrokes to make sure it is similar to my desktop. And here I can see antivirus loading, my Skype client loading. So it is pretty much seamless for the end user, that level of experience too. So if I need to use Cortana or an app that only runs on this particular operating system or version. Again, if you have questions, please make sure you post them in the Q&A and we'll be addressing them very, very soon. So from a console perspective, we also wanted to keep it simple. You can, from one place, verify and check how your farm is behaving. We can tell you how many users are connected to this particular environment as we speak, how you're securing traffic or tunneling traffic to your users. So all of the communication between your students and faculty is always secured. and we are using a single port, which is HTTPS, between them. So it's 2 certificates, no RDP access open to the internet, or even many ports open, just one in this case. On the customization side, you can customize the way that you pretty much want. You can change colors. You can have different options here, or use a specific color that follows your company, your entity requirements. You can use your own logos, or even messages when someone logs in, or if you're in multiple countries or regions, the portal can operate in different language. And like I have a few links in the bottom here, you can customize them as well. And this is very interesting because let me just open the page here while this is not saved yet. As soon as I apply or push this setting to be given to all of my gateways, users don't get disconnected. They are working as they should, and the next time the portal is refreshed, so let's just give a little bit of time, a couple of seconds here, we will see the portal changing colors. And let me just see if I saved properly the color here to be blue. I'll apply it. So let's refresh it. And there you go. The color has changed. I didn't change the logo, but in your case, of course, you could do so. I mentioned about printing. Printing and scanning capabilities, they are turned on out of the box. You don't have to configure, you don't have to make any changes. And the process to add new applications, or if you spin new servers, it's fairly simple. We have wizards where you can click on the publish application. We'll see the resource that you want to publish. And in this case over here, you can pick different server farms, different configurations you have. So let me pick one server here in particular. We'll scan this particular server. So you don't have to use manual settings to find the application. Let's say I want to publish OneDrive. I click on next. The publishing process is started, and once it's done, if I click on publishing, that appeared here. You can set different filters by which user should be accessing, and the following users to have access can be either, let me say here, partners, which is an Active Directory group, or you can add specific individuals. So you can mix the way those applications are published. If you want to control them, you can set the max number of licenses. Certain apps like Microsoft Visio, Photoshop, or CAD, you have limited licenses. You can control them and setting the value. And if the limit exceeds, you can set different ways that user would receive a notification, or even your admins would receive a notification that we exceeded the max number of licenses. Once you are running the software in production, here in your farm, and actually going back to the session host that you have, the sessions, you can also manage them. You can disconnect, send messages, or in case of technical support need, you can remote control the session. Following compliance to different markets, the user will receive a notification, he or she will accept it, and then you can see what kind of problem they're experiencing. The quick keypad, this is a fairly interesting feature, especially for mobile devices and using specific tools that need specific keystrokes. It's super easy to use in a desktop. But into an iPad, it's not easy, or even an Android tablet. So you can capture different shortcuts. I created a few simple ones and assign them to the applications you need. And the idea here is to make it easier anywhere you are. So let me just switch to my iPad for a moment, and I will open the iOS client. Here you can use Touch ID, or even using like a passcode to connect to the apps. And if I go to my open list of apps, I had my desktop open here before, but let me see here, Microsoft Office. Let me go to Microsoft Excel. We'll be connecting to the server, and once that is there, we'll be accessing Microsoft Excel. And Excel will have specific keys that are pre-configured, like the new Macs that you have a touch bar. So I will maximize it. I will open here like my project planner this time. I'll create this particular file. And if I click on the gear, additional keys, the special keystrokes will be presented here. Of course, you can use them at any time. If you don't want it, you can just turn it off. And leveraging our client technology, once you send to printers, for example, like we did with HTML5, we can send it to my iPad, and when I send it to print, we'll be using AirPrint technology. Simple, one-click printing, and then you can select the printers that you have on the network and have that sent out to the end users. If you have different requirements as well, mouse options can be changed, like a built-in mouse on the screen, and using Bluetooth mouse technology, using like SwiftPoint GT, you could have them working as a pointer, like legacy applications that would be. So it depends on what your users would like to see that will be presented for them. The two-factor authentication, or if you have that requirement, it's super easy. It takes maybe 15 to 20 minutes to have that configured, connecting to a 2FA or MFA broker. And usually we send the information to the technology that you have, and you can set what kind of clients that would require this level of authentication as well. So it's pretty much a requirement that is becoming more and more common. And policies, this is where it's super simple to manage a very broad environment, because you can create policies that are designed for all users based upon the priorities that you set, or to specific users. And those settings pretty much controls every single setting that you have in the client. Connections, how the display would work. Printing, if you want to have printing enabled or not, or what kind of printer should be mapped. Scanning, and actually this is fairly important, local resources. If you don't want users or students to save information or files locally, you can simply disable to save on disk drives, USB devices, or allow them to use USB devices, and support plug-and-play capability. So they can attach USB devices before or after they're connected, and they will be updated on the settings side. And on the settings that we have for, especially for Surface Books, Mac devices that they have UHD displays, we have what we call DPI awareness, where you can automatically map high-definition displays, and the settings and the screens will be adapted to them automatically. And for large environments which you might have, you can have delegated administration, so you can either set individuals or groups, and depending on the level of access this user would have, you can change different permissions. So let's say I want to add a new person to have limited control to manage remote application server. You can look permission levels from all the full permissions, or only see site information changes, or just see who's connected. If you break into different sites, you can, or server sites, you can have different access levels for specific individuals. And the entire access or monitoring without additional costs, remote application server can give you an idea about session information. So we're looking here for every 30 seconds. So we could look into different, time frames. So I can see specific dates and times this particular environment was used, CPU resource usage, memory, disk, and network resources. At the same time, we provide fully failover and high availability using resource-based load balancing. So it's very important to look session information plus the resources you have, and we make a decision to give the best performance for the end users. And on the reporting side, which is an interesting feature that a couple of universities have been using in RAS, it's related to chargeback. So what users are connecting, point number one, what applications they are really using. And then, of course, they can tie it into their P&L and see how that works. So right now we're connecting to our SQL database, and also this particular feature has no additional cost. It is part of the solution. You just need to install it. We can use different reports, like for example, application usage and user activity. And those reports by default shows you the last 7 days. And of course, you can change the time frame to be any you want, as long as we have the data available. So from a user activity, I can see different users connected, how many times they connected and for how long. And on the application side, the ones that we see hashtag and the number, it is the applications that were opened by Parallels. So number of times used, for how much time this application consumed resources on the server side. Of course, all of these reports can be refreshed in real time, and you can export it into different formats if you want to attach it to a report. And depending on the licensing model you have, actually I'm using a service provider license key that it's like a cell phone billing equivalent. You will have peak users and then you pay after 30 days, or you use a subscription, which is usually the most typical use case. And you can see the peak usage, how many users today, in the billing cycle, what was the peak usage and concurrent users, and of course, who is the licensed user for this particular environment. You can manage licenses or adding different licenses using Parallels My Account. And if you want to see active users, how many sessions we have open by user using PCs and other devices, you could see in this particular simple report. So again, it's a single console that you can manage all of your resources. They could be related to session hosts, could be related to VDI use cases. And in VDI, we use different flavors of remote PCs, or even using Hyper-V, VMware, or even open source KVM. If you have remote PCs, like I have a couple running Windows 10, 7, or XP to be presented to for specific needs, you can have it, and all presented from a single place. And to not creating additional cost, we offer you a load balancer to manage traffic from incoming gateways. And that one is a Linux appliance that works pretty much on any hypervisor and reroutes traffic for you. So from the time frame we had today, that's what I wanted to show you from a demonstration perspective, and of course educate you a little bit more about what we do with Parallels Remote Application Server in the industry. Let me just stop sharing here for a moment. Let me just go back here to my deck and check if you have any questions that would be for the session today. So let me take a look. I don't think we have additional questions here today, so I guess we covered the agenda we wanted to propose today. So I would like to thank you your time, and if you have additional questions, please feel free to contact Parallels sales team or the pre-sales team, or even go to parallels.com for additional information. Thank you all for your time today and have a great day.